Welcome to this week's BitShares DEV Hangout. This recording is brought to you by the Beyond Bitcoin crew. We welcome all BitShares members to join us weekly and discuss the latest news, updates, and developments. If you'd like to participate in our next meeting, then please join us live on Mumble every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Did you know the Beyond Bitcoin show now has a registered delegate? Please consider voting if you find our Hangouts and recordings useful. The delegate name to vote for is fuzzy.beyondbitcoin. Again, that's fuzzy.beyondbitcoin. The Beyond Bitcoin crew would like to send out a big thank you to everyone who's already voted and allowing us the opportunity to serve the BitShares ecosystem and our valued community members. So once again, welcome and please enjoy the show.
Welcome everybody to another Beyond Bitcoin Hangout. Today is Friday, August 14th, 2015. We're joined again by Bytemaster of Cryptonomex and the community of the BitShares platform. So with that said, Bytemaster, would you like to get going with the updates for this week?
Sure. So, biggest news of the week is the announcement of a new share drop for BitShares. IDentabit. This is a project started by John Underwood. He's been on Mumble a couple times in the past. I don't know if he's here today or not. And that's been something that he's been trying to work through since the PTS days, and all the information is available on the forum. But I'll summarize the IDentabit project. It's basically taken the opposite end of the spectrum. It's the all identity is required in order to have an account on this system. The blockchain is private in the sense that only elected members can connect and see the blockchain. But it's not centralized in the sense of one company that has this. It's a set of companies that are monitoring the ledger in many different jurisdictions. So you've got a sort of a compromise between the public ledger that everyone can see and a private ledger that only trusted individuals can see. But the stakeholders can still vote on who those trusted people are. And then the trusted people that can see the blockchain will be complying with regulations necessary to report transactions to the government, which is really no different than a public blockchain. In a public blockchain, all transactions are reported to the government. In the IDentabit blockchain, only the transactions that are above certain thresholds are reported to government entities. The main difference is that you must do some kind of identity verification to have an account and move money on the system. So it's sort of targeting a different market. John really believes that the regulator and the banks would prefer a system that is more geared toward them. So that's the approach that IDentabit's taking. It's an approach that BitShares can't take, but fortunately for us, BitShares is getting a 20% share drop. Those of us in this Mumble session who have brownie points are also going to be getting an extra bonus. So bottom line, that's IDentabit. John's got a impressive resume and background and lots of connections with banking and government. So hopefully he'll take our community places that BitShares can't go. And so I'm really excited about that. Join the discussion. I think the general consensus on the forum is someone's going to be creating a regulated chain, and we might as well have a stake in that space. And so that's what IDentabit gives us.
This was very interesting as far as IDentabit, because this is a system to kind of ensure privacy of transactions, right?
The benefit to the users of the system are no one can see your balances even on the order book. And all transactions are only revealed to those who have permission to see them. So that is a huge benefit. You get general purpose privacy without having to rely on advanced homomorphic encryptions that are computationally unviable. So it's a big niche. I think there's a strong need to have blockchains that serve this. Now, our plans for this blockchain include the ability to do proof of reserves. So even though you can't see all the transactions, you can verify that your balances are accounted for in a public dump of all balances, but when in that public verifiable dump, there will be no connection between your actual account ID and how you verify your balances are in the public reserve. So yes, you'll be able to see all balances, verify that no money is being printed, but you won't be able to see how transfers go from person to person. You will also be able to verify all transactions are in the blockchain because the blockchain headers will be public. So you'll have the Merkle roots, and so you can say, here's a transaction, I sent it from me to you, here's the hash of the transaction, see, it was included in the blockchain. All the public can see is that the hash was included, but anyone you choose to reveal, you can prove that you made the payment. And so everyone can independently verify that all of their transactions are in the blockchain and their balances add up, but no one can see all the transactions. So that's good.
I just want to get down really quick. So that's because if any of that were altered, or the Merkle root itself would change, because if one of the hashes from one of the leafs in that, as you unfold the Merkle tree, if one of those changes, the root changes. So you can verify that that's in fact what is going on. Exactly. Okay. I mean, we've covered this stuff before, but I just try to we get in this, all of us get into this mode of talking and using terms that maybe not everybody understands. So just wanted to really quick dig into that for a moment.
Right. So there is a public, irreversible record of what all the transactions are. You just can't see the transactions. So it means if you get payment from someone, you better have that balance and you can prove it. And if the companies that are managing the blockchain and have access to the blockchain try to cheat or claim something that's not true, you've got transaction histories that you can prove. So you can choose to make as much of what you can see public as you like. And so there'll be some variations there, but it's certainly a niche that I don't think the cryptocurrency community has explored, and I'm really happy to have John taking the lead on making that possible.
Well, this is one of those places where the underlying protocols are going to serve many purposes, right?
Right. So the protocol is going to be the same transactions as BitShares. So you can craft a transaction, use the same wallet interface, and verify, and all that stuff is all going to be the same as BitShares. So all the infrastructure that's built for IDentabit can be used with BitShares as far as transactions processing goes. So it's a good thing there. And John's raising his own funds to do this. And when he does that, then all the work that goes into funding IDentabit enhances the core protocol, which then BitShares will benefit from. So there's lots of benefits all around.
Do you foresee a situation where because of the differences between IDentabit and BitShares, that the features will be asked to be added that have to be in the core, but they're incompatible with BitShares, and how would you deal with a conflict like that?
The core is relatively modular, so we just maintain two different branches of the code. We try to isolate the differences into their own separate things so that they don't really conflict much.
Okay, thank you.
Can you comment at all on which features that they plan to include, at least in the first rollout of IDentabit? I know he mentioned that they want to kind of keep it as close to, the perception of it as close to Bitcoin as possible at the beginning. But do you know, are they going to be doing anything like market pegged assets or any of the other features that BitShares 2.0 will have right off the bat?
I'm not clear what features they've decided to go with. We've discussed the whole range, so I'll leave that to John to answer.
One last question for me is what about the scheduling? Is there any work that's going on by Cryptonomex towards IDentabit that is going to slow down or impact the delivery time of BitShares 2.0?
Stan is taking the lead on between Cryptonomex and IDentabit right now, so it slows. The only work other that's being done on IDentabit is me thinking about things in off hours and having an occasional phone call with John every couple of weeks. But Stan talks to him on a far more regular basis. John needs the same stuff that we're doing for BitShares as the foundation upon which everything else he's doing is being built. So it doesn't make any sense to start working on IDentabit until BitShares 2 is complete. So no, this is not delaying the release by more than maybe a day or two of my time over the past 6 months.
Fox is asking, has the share drop snapshot date been announced? And to my knowledge, no, but do you have anything that proves it wrong, Bytemaster?
It has not been announced, and we're thinking about taking a different strategy on the share drop. Particularly, I don't know how much it stands discussed with the forum, but anything I say here is just conjecture for discussion. We're thinking about not announcing it until launch. When it launches, there'll be a retroactive snapshot at some date in the past. Meaning that anyone who wants to speculate can't just buy BitShares right before the announcements and then dump after. You have to buy and hold BitShares for the duration, because you never know the day or hour that the snapshot will occur. So hopefully that will help smooth out the volatility and encourage long-term holding in BitShares. It also rewards those who stay invested in BitShares and keep their money off the exchanges, and prevents a lot of gaming and market volatility.
Do they have to have an operating an online wallet for that to be the case, or just have their balance in the blockchain without having an active wallet at the time?
Just balance in the blockchain. You don't have to run your software. So as long as you hold the private key to your funds, then you would get share dropped on at some point between now and the release of IDentabit.
And when you say private key, you mean the owner key, or is the private active key adequate for that purpose?
As long as you control the funds, either.
Well, that's the point. Is if you don't,
the active key is the key we'd probably use.
Okay, very good. I've got some difficulties with some accounts that I've created, and I'm trying to hash those out now. It is a time-consuming process, because in the process of splitting the wallet, I ended up somehow making a mess of the owner keys, but I've got the active keys. So that's why I was asking the question.
All right.
Do you think that such a way of going about the share drop, if it does end up being this way, could sort of maybe inadvertently cause people to pull all of their coins off of the centralized exchanges and have less trading activity, less volume than what we would normally see?
It would result in coins being taken off the exchanges, which basically means less sell pressure. Those who want to buy would have to bid it up and encourage people to be willing to put it onto the exchange to withdraw. But I still maintain that if you want to buy in, you should buy BitUSD. You should deposit BitUSD to CCEDK if you want to sell. And so do all your trading on the BitShares blockchain and you'll be fine. Bit assets are not share dropped on. So if you want to buy or sell, you should get onto our blockchain through a bit asset.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
You do not need to do anything to get credit for the share drop. This share drop will be a snapshot, just like we're upgrading. There is no action you need to take in order to qualify, other than removing it from the central exchanges. Some exchanges may choose to honor the share drop, but we maintain that we want to encourage people to do their trades on the blockchain and not on the exchanges, and that the exchanges are partners we'd like to have. So
Sure.
Any share drop that does occur, we believe it's perfectly legitimate for the exchange to claim it, and it's up to them, the exchange themselves, to decide what to do. So please don't complain to the exchanges if they don't honor it.
Is it safe to say that this whole method of share dropping isn't set in stone? I mean, to me, whenever this opened up and I started reading about it, I really started thinking just how many, like in 5 to 10 years, what are we going to be seeing? Are we going to be seeing, for instance, something like this type of like share drops in our emails? Instead of receiving a bunch of cluttered messages about a company and becoming a customer, are we going to start seeing them send us shares in the company so we can enter their ecosystem and try it out? You know, are we going to see things like that? And where does all of this share dropping ethos come from? And what are we going to do with it? Where is it going to go? Because there were times in the past when it was almost a beneficial thing to know when a share drop, and to always be searching for if there was going to be a share drop. Because if you knew that there was going to be something share dropped extensively on a certain token, and you got in there before everybody else did, you could actually make a decent bit of money when everybody was like, oh my God, and this is to say, even the day before a snapshot, there would be people, you'd see the price significantly rise. So I often found myself thinking that there were ways of almost funding oneself. It would be kind of pre-miney, but there would be other ways of doing this stuff. So have you talked to anybody else about share drops and snapshots and had alternative views of how this would go besides just this one?
A share drop is nothing more than buying loyalty. It's just buying people. It's like free samples. Hey, come try out our product. Here's something to get you started. After you try it out, we believe that you'll stick around and buy more. That's the concept behind it. So when you decide to do a share drop, you're really trying to select and reward the people who are going to help make your venture successful. If it's a company, maybe they're just trying to give out coupons. Companies share drop all the time, logically speaking, when they send you junk mail with a bunch of coupons for money off their products. It's the same concept. They're funding their share drop with discounts, whereas these startups are funding it with equity. Just two different ways of funding giveaways or to encourage people to join your ecosystem, your business, to see what you have to say. So when John share drops on BitShares, he wants to recognize those that funded it. But he also wants to recognize and get the active support and participation of anyone who's been extremely active in their time. All the unpaid hours of the people that show up here in these mumble sessions, the people who are on the forum, giving feedback, giving advice, the people who go out there, tell friends, take initiative. Those people are providing a huge amount of value, and you want those people to be stakeholders because they're less likely to sell and they're more likely to go out there and promote, and so you actually get a higher return from those type of people. So there's lots of different reasons for doing these different drops, but it's just like you want to give your partners equity so that they have incentive to work with you. And that's all it is it's just, hey, I need to buy your support, buy your time, buy your attention. Here's some tokens. And that's what they're doing. So there's no right or wrong way of doing it. It's just handing out money, hoping to get something back.
James is asking here, will one need to claim all BTS allocations for the merger last November to be able to be given credit in the share drop?
No.
I know this is an old question to a lot of us, but for some it's not necessarily. Yes. So basically, he doesn't have to do anything, correct?
Correct. And keep in mind that share drop policies may be vested, unvested, instantly vested, various schedules. There's all kinds of different ways that stake can show up in the new blockchain. So I don't know how much John has decided there, but check out his website and follow him for updates on that.
And just to let everybody know, I have a thumbs up from him about a future hangout. So you guys will all have your ability to the opportunity to sit down and pick his brain.
So in BitShares news, we have internally announced a feature freeze on the core protocol. We're not changing anything. We think it's stable. Obviously, there's a long list of things that we'd like to do to improve it, but any improvements will be in the form of a future hard fork. The only thing that we're doing right now on the core backend protocol is fixing bugs, if there is a bug that shows up. We haven't seen any bugs of any significance in a really long time, so we're pretty confident with that. The front-end website hosted wallet is coming along nicely. I've been working on that full-time, more or less, for the past 2 weeks. My big accomplishment this week is the user interface for voting for witnesses and committee members, aka delegates. That is now working, as well as proxy voting is all working in the user interface. We have a few last minute items to get into the user interface. The account permissions, which is the hierarchical dynamic multisig. This next week I will be working on the GUI for that, and once that's done, you should be able to do manage your permissions, import your balances, issue assets, create assets, transfer funds, and do the exchange. We are still, believe we're on schedule for having a feature freeze in the GUI within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And once we have that feature freeze in the GUI, that's when we're going to do the 30-day countdown to switch over to the hard fork. So we're on less than 2 months from having the upgrade go through. So we're still on schedule from last week. We're making progress at a rate that I still think we're on target for. So that's good. In other news, Nathan has put together a wallet, very much like the current BitShares wallet. We download it and it hosts the web app internally and is a full node. So when we release, you'll be able to have a full node that's local host with the web interface on it. So you don't necessarily have to use a hosted wallet provider. This new interface is using the Qt 5.5 with the latest Chrome backend, which we think will fix a lot of the stability issues for all of you people that have experienced crashes in Windows. The crash reports that we've been receiving indicate that they're mostly in WebKit. So we're optimistic that most of those bugs from third-party libraries will be fixed in this release. It'll also be slightly more secure than the current wallet because all the private keys will be kept on JavaScript side in the browser. So the ports that we expose are not exposing any private information. You don't have to worry about someone connecting to your local host and compromising your wallet. We haven't done benchmarks on the testnet recently, but the last time we did it, the limitation was only in the number of wallets that we could get online producing transactions. The actual processing of the transactions was not a limitation.
Speaking of testnet, there was a snapshot, or not a snapshot, a preview recently, and I compiled the code and tried to get on. But by the time I tried to get on, this testnet was not operational. When do you anticipate that we'll be able to get back on and actually interact with the code?
I keep pushing the guys to get something out there every single week. It's just that. So I've been wrong so many times on when they say they're going to have it. Seems everyone's gun shy about releasing something because they don't want to be embarrassed about any bugs, or they know that there's things, and
are inundated with a lot of complaints or whatever. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. There's just a lot of things where, hey, I know it's not perfect yet. I don't want anyone to see me while I'm half dressed.
Good analogy.
Kind of thing. It's not like we're indecent or anything, but it seems to be that's the mindset that's been tended to rule the day. But some good news from the last one is we've got Safari working on mobile and desktop. So that's a bug that we discovered when people tried to get on last time. So we've got someone coming on board who's going to be doing nothing but testing and the user interface from a dumb user perspective instead of from a developer perspective. So hopefully that will help us find and document those bugs. I can say I'm very pleased with the React.js infrastructure and its ability to make reliable applications compared to our previous wallet. I am using this wallet every day. I have a much better feel for its status and what it's going to take to finish up all the loose ends. When we do the initial release, it's probably not going to be as pretty and polished as we would all like, but it should be fully functional, and then we'll roll out the polishing it over time. We just don't want to. We want to give everyone a relatively stable wallet, an experience better than BitShares 1. So our internal mandate is focus on the features that BitShares 1 has, and make sure that when we release, we are at least as good as BitShares 1, and then we'll add the extra user interface enhancements on top of that.
Will there be enough time from when the DevNet, the testnet's available, for the community here before the feature freeze, so that any changes that the community comes up with can be factored in rather than it being past the code freeze date?
Well, code freeze on the user interface is slightly different than code freeze on the protocol. So anyone who's wanted to have feedback on the protocol has had ample opportunity over the past 2 months to check it out, run their own private testnet. Running a testnet in development node is extremely easy. So if you're looking at integrating or doing anything, you don't need to wait for a testnet. You can start right now with your own local version. There are documentation on the GitHub wikis and in the various places that will help you do that. So if you would like to start integrating, whether it's for shopping cart or merchants or whatever, post a forum post. If you have questions, we'll try to point you to the proper resources for getting started. There's no need for a testnet to start integration, and I can't emphasize that enough. A testnet will help you if you're trying to do customer testing. Say, hey, get on the testnet, try this out. But for private internal testing, you should be able to completely build things with what we have right now. If you need additional features, let us know and we'll try to add them. The primary thing we're trying to avoid is features that change existing functionality. We don't want to break any API calls that would cause rework in the user interface. And I think that's mainly where we are.
Thank you, Bytemaster.
Well, iHash Fury is asking if there's if this new. He posted a CoinDesk article. New cracking tool exposes major flaw in Bitcoin brain wallets. And he's asking if this is going to be a problem for graphene, but iHash, I don't know. I'm going to leave it to Bytemaster to see if he can answer it, but I don't know that since he hasn't probably had the chance to read it.
I just brought it up, but yeah, it's, in order for me to give a educated opinion, I'd have to go read that. Multisig always helps, and someone asked earlier, will the CLI wallet support multisig? Yes, it already does. You can do everything from the CLI wallet right now.
Well, I'll say this. You seem to have covered some of the, well, all of the questions from Jacob in this week's questions in the Hangout questions for Bytemaster thread. So if anybody else has any questions in this area, feel free to ask.
You mentioned earlier that you've got someone coming on and doing dumb user testing for the GUI, and I wanted to ask a question as a dumb user myself. Being not a coder, I just I've always kind of struggled to understand the best practices, as it were, when it comes to protecting your private keys, as far as I know that there's something called cold storage, which has different meanings and implications depending on the technology you're using. But I'm wondering if you guys are planning on publishing or at least delineating in some dumb user type fashion, a step by step, as it were, for the very best practices for protecting private keys of large balances.
The best practice under Graphene would be to identify 3 or 4 of your friends' accounts and make them multi-sig, or make them cosigners on your account, which would require you plus some subset of your friends in order to access your money. Then if your computer gets compromised, it doesn't matter because they only got your key, and your key's not enough. They still need your friends. So an attacker would have to compromise your key and your friends' computers in order to do that. Now, you can be your own friend just by having multiple computers. You can have one wallet on your phone and one wallet on your computer, and one wallet in some offline computer. And you just make 2 or 3 different devices cosigners on the account. If you do that, then it's very unlikely that a hacker will compromise all your keys at once. The only other aspect to that is that you need to rotate your keys, because if they might compromise your key, they didn't steal your funds, you don't know your key's been compromised, and then 6 months later they compromise your other key and you're out of luck. So some key rotation would probably be good. But you can't just rotate with new keys from your brain wallet, because, well, if they compromised your wallet, chances are they've compromised your brain key and they can derive all the other keys. So we are working on backup techniques for the wallet to make it easier to recover and save your wallet. But yeah, multi-sig is by far the most secure thing you can do. It's even more secure than cold wallet storage, because when you bring out your key from your cold wallet, you could be compromised at the time you enter it. So redundancy is better than trying to keep it secret. Two-factor authentication will not be available on release of 2.0. What I just described was manual two-factor authentication, but there won't be integration with the third-party services.
Does that answer your question, T-Bone NYC? Time frame for for two-factor is what he's wondering about.
It's not even scheduled at this point. It's yes, we'd like to do it, but we've got so many other things in front of it that we can't even see it.
This is actually a good place to ask this question from Ben Mason. After the launch of the latest round of changes, were you able to commit to and publish a roadmap to 1.0? I'm assuming he's meaning 2.0.
To 2.1?
Perhaps, yeah.
So once you release 2.0, there will probably be regular, steady updates to the user interface. Updates to the protocol are going to be much more formal. The worker proposals are going to have budgets and timelines and schedules associated with them. So as far as overall feature set, what we're going to prioritize, that's going to be depending on what users vote for, what the stakeholders, the large stakeholders, think is most important. So I had a controversial idea that I'd like to run by everyone here. And it's an idea of giving those who voluntarily lock up their funds for a significant period of time, 6 months to 1 year, a multiple on their voting power. So if you've got 1% of the stake and you lock it up for a year, you have like 2 times the voting power on your 1% stake. The idea of incentivizing people to lock up funds and commit to the project, and if you're willing to commit for a year, you should have more say over someone who's not committed and can just dump. So that's an idea we had. I was curious what anyone thought about that type of thing.
I'll start off, I guess. My initial thoughts are that you're going to have a lot of people who are upset about it. And the other thought is more of a question. Could it be actually have a negative effect if too many people lock up their balances because they don't want to lose any voting power? Or do you not see that being an issue?
There's nothing wrong. Locking up balances is basically commitment. It's basically long-term demand.
So you don't think that would mess with or hurt the volume at all?
Volume is based on buyers and sellers, either flowing one direction or the other. You don't need volume for volume's sake. So people locking it up, if they're willing to lock it up, they're basically saying, hey, I wasn't planning on selling anyway. It basically says that I'm not going to sell just because I don't like the way the vote turned out. I'm committed to this project, whether or not the vote goes in my favor.
So the suggestion would be to predetermine a period of time to lock up your shares as opposed to having increased voting power based on shares that have sort of de facto not been used for a certain period of time.
Correct. You've got to lock it up between now and the future. The past doesn't matter. We care about your future commitment.
The relationship between this time span which you lock it up for and the increased amount of voting power, is that arbitrary, or is there a way of working out an optimal level relationship between the two?
There's probably, everything's arbitrary here. But yeah, in theory, there's the longer you lock it up, the larger your commitment to the system is. But there's, of course, diminishing returns. If you lock it up for 10 years or 100 years, I don't think anyone cares about the difference. So there needs to be some limits there. And the ratio between the voting power of those who've committed versus those who haven't can pose some security considerations, because if an attacker buys 5% and they lock it up and they get a 10x multiple, now they're voting as if they had 51% against everyone else who didn't lock up the funds. So you need to restrict the multiples to levels that don't make it too easy to get a 51% attack. But keep in mind, they're locking up the funds. So if they attack it, then their funds are going down too. It's not like they can attack and then sell.
How will the lockup take place? How will that be insured?
It'll be put in a balance on the blockchain that the protocol consensus rules will not allow you to move until a certain date.
2 questions here. It looks like Tuck the Man's asking, does this give any unfair advantage to large stakeholders, in your opinion?
Larger stakeholders aren't able to liquidate, so they might choose to lock it up, have extra influence. It gives the large stakeholders more influence if they're willing to commit. At the same time, all the little guys don't like it when a whale dumps. So it's kind of a trade-off. So this is just an idea I had floating around. I thought it was an interesting way to create demand, take supply off the market, and encourage people to commit, hopefully reducing volatility, because people get in and out all the time, and we'd like people to get in and stay in rather than try to trade the market.
Are you
Tuck
going to
actually makes a good point here. He says pay interest instead. Have we considered something like that?
Yes, we have considered that. The loyalty program that was shut down. That has interesting side effects. You could pay interest to them. You could pay dividends to them. There's all kinds of different things you can do. But I was trying to come up with a non-inflationary approach to encourage people to hold funds long term.
I personally like it. I'll say that. I mean, but that's probably because I don't think I've ever sold any BitShares. So I might be weird with respect to that. And well, I take that back. I have sold BitShares for BitUSD. Yeah. So big
anyway,
friggin' stretch, right?
Yeah, that's just an idea out there. You know, whether or not it gets implemented in BitShares, other blockchains, maybe IDentabit, maybe other chains that come out in the future might consider that an interesting concept. So the timeline for the testnet, 2 to 3 weeks would be the feature freeze for the UI and the back end, and that's probably going to be when we release DevShares 2.0, because at that point we believe we'll have a functional user interface, an app you can download and run and connect to the network, stable protocol, and I think all that would be within the next 2 weeks.
So DevShares is going to be kicking it off for us.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Can we bring up a topic that, just because it was a topic on the forum over the last couple of days, and I think there was some emotion behind it. So I was wondering if you'd maybe just be able to clarify a little bit.
Brownies?
Sure. Yeah. Just a little bit of a clarification.
I knew it was going to come up.
What the plans are going forward, if anything's changed, if there's going to be some sort of, more of an objective, maybe rubric for determining it, or whether it's going to be, sort of just purely subjective in the way that you've stated already. Could you maybe just talk a little bit about that for us, Bytemaster?
Sure. It's impossible to do an objective measure of someone's contribution, particularly when not everyone has access to all information and not everyone knows the value of all actions. So you either subjugate everything to vote and get widespread approval, or you have someone in charge of just deciding. So brownie points have been divvied up with, I try to estimate the total number of hours someone put into something, and 100 brownie points per hour is what I try to estimate it. But then your goal is, well, how objective is the measurement of hours contributed, and are all hours equal? Are the hours of someone who just reads the forum equal to the hours of someone who goes and writes code? And that, that's all subjective. And is the code produced useful, or is the code not? Were the comments useful, or were the comments not? Different people have different opinions on those things. So there is no such thing as an objective measure. I'm trying my best to estimate the hours. I asked everyone to individually estimate how many hours they've contributed. Not everyone contributed an estimate of the hours. They asked me to estimate it. And I can be extremely wrong in my guesses. I can underestimate, I can overestimate, but the idea is that I think I'm right within an order of magnitude. And the work that people were doing was unpaid work. This is all bonus. It's all a tip. Maybe somebody gets jealous because they didn't get as big a tip as someone else. That a jealous mindset's just not healthy for anyone. I think the idea is everyone should be extremely grateful for the free gifts that they're getting. You gave freely, you supported the community, you're getting something back. It's more than you were expecting to get back, and let's just be grateful. Now, I've been very busy, so I haven't handed out brownie points recently, and there's some of you who I either missed or didn't have an account for. I'm still going to be handing them out, and I've got someone helping me track all that stuff to make sure things don't fall through the cracks. So if you haven't gotten any, don't worry. There's still more brownie points coming out. The share drop's not done. So there's probably going to be a lot more interest in people posting and making requests for brownie points now. And I plan to hand them out just the same as always, freely, liberally, and try to get as many different people to have a stake in this. And if you've done anything, whether it's just feedback on the forums, going to conferences, get out there and make a case for it, and just let people know what you've been doing. It does two things. People get to see you, get to see all the people that have been out there, and it's just all around great. And of course, there's nothing wrong with buying brownie points from people. Those who sell the brownie points are cashing out into just another currency. They got something, someone else wants to have the brownie points for whatever they're worth. But I want to reiterate that just because John is targeting brownie points as a source of contributions, the only thing he committed is to allocate 20% to those who are active in the BitShares community. Brownie points is just one measure of that. He may choose to allocate some of that 20% not to brownie points, but to other individuals who have helped him specifically. So I just want to make it clear that John did not state in the announcement that he was going to do brownie points, but the brownie points are a good measure of what we've been thinking represents that. And so that's the purpose of brownie points, is just to track those who have been active and who are valuable because they give their time. BitShares represents those who are valuable because they give their capital. But not everyone has the ability to buy tons of BitShares, and some just buy a little bit and give a lot. So I think brownie points is a good way of recognizing all of the labor, which is a huge part of what makes all this successful, is the fact, the 50 people or more we have in this conference call right now is hugely driven by word of mouth. And that's what really gives all this stuff value, is the community that we're building. So we want to recognize those people that are given this value.
So just to reiterate, for those that are out there that are thinking to themselves, I've done something valuable, and I want to, what's the best way to get on the radar, either your radar or the radar of someone who's been tasked with handing out brownie points? Is there a forum thread, or should they contact you directly? Or
forum thread is the best way to just post on there. If you didn't receive a payout, post again. I'm going to have someone go through that thread and go through the wallet and make sure that everything's been paid out accordingly. But that's the main place where we're going to go look for people who are trying to claim it. You can send me a PM, but I'd prefer you not send me a PM at this point, because ultimately I have to decide on each and every allocation of brownie points. So I'm going to have someone else aggregate and track, this is what people did and this is what they have done. I guess another thing that we're going to ask people to do if you're contributing code is we've got a contributor license agreement based off of Apache. So before we can accept any contributions, we're going to need you to sign that document that basically allows your code to be freely used by anyone in the BitShares community and helps keep the licensing clear. If we owe you brownie points and you for contributing code, it might be contingent upon us actually getting that from you. I think that's...
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of piggyback, because I did want to bring it in at some point, but Cryptic brought it in actually at a really good point. This whole brownie thing, there are a lot of people who are frustrated, who are concerned. We have a guy on the forum called Lucky. His name is LuckyBit. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of who he is. But for a long time, he has been talking about the gift economy, and he was actually the first place where I heard the term gift economy. And I found it very interesting. That's why I mentioned it was an interesting social experiment to me to see where this is going to go. But the one thing that's kind of a conflict that I see between the gifting economy, which I believe brownies kind of represent, and what many would call the traditional economy, is that brownies are not really legally binding agreements, so the law doesn't get in there. It's almost like you remember, I think it was 1 or 2 weeks ago when I was complaining about whenever I used to run a guild, I could give people DKP for helping us to kill a monster. But in the game, the monster couldn't tax my entire guild with 25% of the DKP that they earn, and then use it to kill the strongest member in our team or something like that. They can't do any of that stuff. So it's almost like the way that you've designed it up to now, and please tell me if I'm wrong, is kind of to make sure that we don't have to worry about any of those things it's almost a self-governance type of thing instead of reaching outside to different jurisdictions of governance. Is this more of a gifting economy type of token? And that's why, because people are concerned, he can take them back at any time. A lot of these things seem like disclaimers you put in there simply because it actually kind of unties some of those legal ties that would tie things down.
Yes. I put lots of disclaimers in there because brownie points are not a security. They are not a promise or commitment by me to do anything. The statement that I can take them back at any time is more or less proof that I don't owe you anything. Oh, look, I took them back. Now I don't owe you anything.
Sure.
So that's the clearest, most extreme example of making sure that these things are not securities. That doesn't mean that they can't function as a way for people to keep track of stake and equity. I don't have time to be petty and take it back from people. And, people probably sell it before I can take it back. So these legal disclaimers are there to protect me and while still allowing us to get all the benefits. You can still have all the benefits of brownie points and the ability to track who's done what and the ability to receive share drops and all that without creating a legal security. And that's the idea behind it, is have the benefits without the legal constraints. The downside is you have to trust. You have to say, well, Bytemaster could issue a ton of brownie points. He could debase all the brownie points he's already given out. And yes, I can do that at the drop of a hat. So, but it's not in my interest to do so, because the reason I'm giving them to people is because I really am grateful for everyone's contributions. It makes no sense to say, hey, thank you, I'm taking it back now.
Wouldn't it be safe to say that you're also comfortable that people trust you? I mean, that your reputation is on the line here?
To a large extent it is, and to some extent it's kind of messy. I misjudged whatnot, and I piss people off. I'm taking a calculated risk, but I'm really hoping to cultivate a community of grateful, positive people rather than entitled, grumpy people.
Well, and there could be a coin, I've seen and had kind of some discussions in the background. What's interesting to me is there could be the antithesis of brownies, right? Like butterscotch coin or something like that, where if you don't like brownies, every time that brownies are given out, you receive the butterscotch or something like that, right? So now you have a demographic that disagrees philosophically with pretty much everything that this demographic does and might end up becoming a different share drop target. These things are actually like...
Exactly. There's all kinds of things you can do with these coins, and Peer Tracks is going to be demonstrating the power of the brownie point concept with artists. That's about what it comes down to, is artists appreciating their fans. So we're just seeing what this concept goes for. there's lots of things we're doing. People want to reach active cryptocurrency enthusiasts to specifically target for share drops, whether or not they are wealthy. So people might think, well, if I share drop on BitShares, I'm supporting a couple BTS whales, and how does that help me? But what they really want is to target the people that are active, and then the whales will move their money over if they think it's a better investment, right? Because whales are investors, so they hope to attract the whales by having a better investment case, and the users by share drops. So
now hold on, Bytemaster. I just have to plug data security here because he came up with this, and we got to give credit where it's due. He's now named it smart dropping.
Yes.
Are you happy that we got that out there, Data? Okay.
So we're at the 1 hour mark. Data, don't worry.
Yes, sir.
You are very valued. You will get plenty of brownies. So Data is one of the people I appear to have overlooked. So, but yeah, thanks everyone for showing up today. We're working hard around the clock to get this stuff out there for you. I'm very excited about where things are going. I can say that IDentabit will not be the last share drop on BitShares, and that's all I can say.
Well, I will say this: I am pumped to see that share dropping has not died. I've always thought this was you really framed it really well for me in the what was it, the last hangout or the hangout before, when you kind of compared it to a mutual fund. And to me, that right there that's what gets my mom and my dad putting their retirement, or a portion of their retirement, in something like this.
Well, once again, I don't recommend anyone put any money into this that they cannot afford to lose and still be happy. One last statement about the brain wallets. The only thing it's cracking is brain wallets created by users that aren't sufficiently strong. The brain wallets we are using, they're not so much brain wallets. We are selecting words from a dictionary and asking people to write them down. We have as much entropy as a full private key. So our brain wallet system, it's more of a 16 words that you can write down, and it'll give you access to your funds. So it's not really subject to the same vulnerability as being cracked by the system, the article you posted. So that said, there's a lot of information that cannot be saved by Brain Wallet. It's not as simple as it is in Bitcoin realm, where I've got the keys, that's all I need. You also want to keep track of all the other settings in your wallet. What are my preferred markets, my preferred currencies, any blinded transactions that you've received? You need to know what they are, because you don't know what the keys are in advance, and you don't have the ability to scan the entire blockchain. So we're actually working on a way of backing up the wallet, because as nice as brain wallets are, they don't give you perfect protection. And in some extent, some circumstances, if your wallet's compromised, if you're doing key cycling, like I mentioned before, it doesn't help you to cycle keys from the same brain wallet, because they'll just generate all the keys. So I guess that's what I had to say about that, is the brain wallet system is not compromised in graphene.
Great, that's good to know.
Of course, if you do a manual brain wallet for your thing, it's on you. If you create 3 or 4 word brain wallet, I'm sorry, but that's user error, but we don't recommend that, or even expose the way for the user to enter their own brain key at this point in time.
Is key cycling going to be different than an account transfer? I mean, is that going to show up differently as the operation or the process that's involved?
It's just like an account update, just updating your permissions.
Okay, thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I was wondering about cryptography in general. Whenever I read about it or try to learn about it, I hear experts saying never roll your own. I was wondering how how the cryptography is actually implemented for BitShares and other cryptocurrencies?
We're using the same libraries for the cryptography as Bitcoin. So we're not rolling our own cryptography.
Okay.
So basically, it's been tried and tested and true and found to be good.
Yeah, it's all industry standard algorithms and industry standard libraries implementing those algorithms. Of course, we could use the libraries in a bad way that results in information leaking, but we're not coming up with our own cryptographic protocol, and I would never dream of trying to come up with my own cryptography.
Yeah, that might push back the timeline a bit.
Not to mention no one trusting a system based off of unproven cryptography. Right? The Germans thought that the Enigma machine was unbreakable until they found out it wasn't. So, rolling your own, I doubt I'm as smart as the Germans that came up with the Enigma machine. And we know that was easily broken. So, yeah, don't create your own cryptographic schemes. There's lots of academic research in that field, lots of peer review that goes into it. Stick with that stuff. That's what we're doing in all areas.
RHAG is bringing up the committed nonce issue.
All right, so this is an issue with the blind signature bounty that he worked on. We're not currently using that code as part of the core protocol. This is more of a extra protocol. So there may very well be an issue there. I have not thoroughly vetted everything he's posted there. By the way, I need to give you a lot of brownie points if I haven't already for the work you did on those blinded signatures and your ideas on improving that. You've really made some valuable contributions just to the knowledge base of our community. I really appreciate the work you've done there. As far as blinded transactions, we're using stuff that's been peer reviewed by the Bitcoin cryptologists, the experts there, and the approach we're taking uses well-known primitives that are relatively secure. So, furthermore, if there was a compromise in the blinded signature, the blinded transfer system, it would be restricted only to the blinded balances themselves. The system will not allow people to end up printing money because it tracks the total balance of all blinded balances and makes sure that when you unblind, you never end up unblinding more than was previously blinded. So even if there was a vulnerability in the blind transfers, it would be restricted to only those using it and not the whole network. All right, well, I'll see you guys later. Thanks so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you as well, and I'm just going to come out and say to all of you, we have a really amazing community here, and though we don't always agree on everything, this is including the brownie discussion. I can honestly say that I don't want to be in any other community. I mean, I want to bring others to our community, but I mean, this is the place to set up shop in terms of the people who really, like, everybody here cares about the project and what we're working on. So I just wanted to remind everybody, let's try to think long term about this stuff, and let's also realize that not everything's going to be perfect.